Right. It is Monday, June 10th, 2024, and the time is 6 o'clock. We do have a quorum present, so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order, and Paul is going to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Paul. Janie is going to read our board mission statement.
With high expectations and equitable opportunity, TMISD will focus on the whole child by providing a safe environment and high-quality curriculum with diverse and enriching experiences.
Thank you, Janie. Do we have public comment? Okay, we're going to go ahead and start our budget workshop.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, Madam President, members of the board. Just to give you a breakdown of how we plan on presenting the information leading up to adopting a budget and setting the tax rate in August is tonight we're going to focus on strategic staffing and what we've done with respect to cost savings. Then next week at the regular meeting, we'll attack revenue projections. And then on the regular meeting on July 15th, we'll marry them, projected expenditures and revenue projections. And then that'll still give us a month to do anything we need to do to look at some of the information. Revenue, we are waiting on Nueces County and Flint Hills to see where that goes, because that's going to play a major role in revenue, because this will be the first year will be outside of the transition formula grant, which means that if people don't pay their taxes, it has a direct impact on revenue. Prior to that, the state held us harmless. If whatever we didn't collect, they would make up. That's not the case anymore. The good news with that is, regardless, prior to this year, regardless of what we did with Warpath as far as CTE funding, we wouldn't see any increase in CTE funding. Now we can. And as you know, we've had many students take advantage of Warpath Academy. But we're in the process of gathering all that information. It seems like it changes hourly regarding good news, bad news, lack of funding. But tonight, we're going to walk you through specific cuts, particularly with personnel. And then we're going to look at ACC restructuring. And personnel is about 75% of our budget. So having said that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Riggs.
Well, good evening, Madam President Boone, Mr. Van Matry, and Board of Trustees. As Mr. Van Matry said, this is our first budget workshop where we're going to talk about strategic staffing, what we've done with staffing this year, and some cost-saving initiatives that we have. So just to quickly go through, at our next regular board meeting, as Mr. Van Matry said, we're going to look at revenues. On the July 15th regular school board meeting, we're going to look at the proposed budget where we introduce expenditures. And then at August 12th, we have our final budget workshop and a special called board meeting. So in regard to staffing, we have, due to the fluctuation in enrollment, that impact on recapture and a lack of legislative funding, we've had to make some really hard staffing decisions in order to address our projected budget deficit. As you know, 75% of our budget is payroll. So if we need to reduce our budget in any way, that's really the place where we need to look to make those changes. In addition to that, as attendance. We all know that the importance of our students being in their chair every day. At the end of 22-23, our overall attendance percentage was 91%. And with the current revenue model, every 1% of attendance or a change in attendance by 1% has an impact of $325,000. So for 23-24, we're looking at having an attendance waiver that'll come to you probably at the next board meeting. We project our attendance is going to be a little bit over 93%.
In the budget, are we gonna use 93?
Yes.
For next year.
Yes, we're not going to increase any attendance or any enrollment, knowing that we will increase attendance and we will increase enrollment.
So knowing that payroll is the highest cost in our budget, we've been reviewing staffing. We've been reviewing with directors and with campus principals, all staffing throughout the campuses and the departments. What our goal has been is to identify places where we're overstaffed and where we can make some changes. We are using TASB recommendations, specifically our 2021 TASB staffing review, which gives us benchmark data, what other school districts are doing, and it kind of gave us recommendations on where we could cut based off of the 2021 staffing. Now we know there have been changes since then, but we're kind of using that as our guide to make sure that we're making really good decisions going forward. The biggest way we've been addressing staff is through attrition. So what is attrition? Attrition is the loss of staff through natural means. People retire, people resign. We eliminate positions because we find that, some programs aren't needed anymore, different things like that. It's not in any way, shape, or form just picking people and saying we're reducing these positions. These are people who are choosing to resign, retire, and are leaving the district. So what we're doing is we're meeting with campus and departments to make sure, hey, this vacancy is open. Do we need to fill it? And so it's not just something somebody decides unilaterally. We always come to the table and make a decision as to whether or not we need to fill the position. And so we find in some places we absolutely have a need, and so we advertise and we fill the position. In other places, we find that we don't need to fill it, or we find that we can fill it with a different person. So in some places we found where we've had a certified teacher, we can hire a paraprofessional, and that brings savings to the district. So we have those types of conversations every time there's a position open.
Can I ask you a question? Doing this, is this going to affect student enrollment in the classrooms? What do you do?
Yes.
Yes.
So they're going to increase
Yes.
the student enrollment in
Yes.
the classrooms?
But how far below the state amount will we be?
It'll be right at it. It'll be 22-1.
And we have some slides to address that.
Well, let me ask you, we as a board, or I don't remember, it was last year or where, we had brought up the concern of having 22, 23 kids per classroom, but that's where we're at then.
We've not been there, but that's where we're going.
No, I'm not saying that's not where we've been at. That's where we're at now for this starting year.
That's where we're going. In
That's
other
where
words.
we're going.
That's where we're staffing.
An area of concern is special education. We have two concerns there. One is student need. If our students require services, we're going to make sure that our students get the supports that they need. They require specialized services. So yes, in a lot of those situations, we do have to restaff positions. The other thing that we have to take into consideration when we do reduce special ed positions, because we have found that there are places where we don't have a need. There's the kids move from one campus to another, so that frees up some staff. They might be adequately staffed at the next campus. So there are positions that we find that we no longer need.
Do you have an example of that? Because I've been real particular with the special education view, and I don't understand how you could say that if one student moves, there might not be, but I mean, am I correct or was I misled? But we had 700 kids in the 504 program, 300 of those in the SPED program. I don't see where, if a couple of kids move up, where there wouldn't be somebody coming in right behind it and still need that quality education or that person. I mean, do you have an example of what you mean by students moving forward and not having to feel that need?
I'm trying to think. So one of the examples, I guess, that I would have is at intermediate. We've chosen to fill it, but we do feel that we have one paraprofessional that we don't need at that campus. We're choosing to fill it, but based off of the number of students that are leaving from 5th grade to 6th grade and the number of students that are coming up from 2nd grade, it changes the numbers to where they don't need that many students. Does that make sense?
You mean that many teachers?
I mean, that many teachers, that many positions.
So there's less students in the program coming up to the 5th grade?
So it changes the dynamic just a little bit.
Okay.
So one area where we have made some cuts has been at library aides and parent facilitators. So we have eliminated all parent facilitator positions, and the rationale for that is we've been partnering with communities and schools at the secondary levels, specifically middle school and high school, not at ACC at this time. We have decided that we'd like to partner with them. They've done a really good job. It's been a good partnership that has worked for the district. So we are going to put a CIS person at ACC, at intermediate, and at primary for the next school year.
Can you tell me what that is, CIS?
Communities and schools,
Okay.
that is the partnership we have where they help us with
No, okay.
things.
I just didn't know what the acronym
Oh, sorry. So we'll have one person at each of the campuses, and that will fulfill the same role as our parent facilitators. Our parent facilitators on average are about $30,000 when you think about base salary and benefits, whereas these individuals will be able to contract with CIS for $17,000 a year. So that will provide a savings, and we will get the same type of services that we were offering our students and our campuses.
And to be clear, those positions were funded through the COVID ESSER 3, which is.
They were
Yeah.
actually title funded.
Okay, title funded.
Yes. So all facilitators have been reassigned to other positions within the district that have come with them. So they all have jobs within the district in other areas. In addition, libraries throughout the district, with the hard times that schools are facing, there's some schools that are building schools without a library, or they've decided that they're no longer going to have certified librarians in their libraries. They're going to move to media specialists, they're going to move to paras, different things like that. We stand committed at making sure that all our libraries have a certified librarian in the library. That being said, we feel that we could eliminate the librarian, paraprofessional, and clerical positions. So we had 3 library paraprofessionals within our districts. High school had a library clerk. We have eliminated the library clerk. That was through attrition. The individual who held that position has retired at the end of this year. We have 1 paraprofessional that was already reassigned during the year, and the 2 remaining library paraprofessionals have new positions that they will start in the upcoming year.
I'm sorry to.
No, you're fine.
But this is a workshop, so I'm gonna, okay. Going back to the parent facilitators, you said they've all been moved. So where's the savings? If we're adding 17,000 for 3 other CIS employees, but we've still maintained these people, parent facilitators,
It's the difference.
but now they're
because-
going to the general fund.
But they're filling positions that were already there.
We're already
They're
budgeted
They're
for.
backfilling.
They're vacant.
No, I get it, but,
So we're gonna see some savings in Title I, which is the difference between the 17,000 and the 30,000 that they would have normally been paid.
I get that, but what I'm saying, a parent facilitator are gonna fill actual school positions? are they qualified to do that?
Yes, when they were onboarded initially, they all
I know
went
what
to.
they're filling, I'm just asking, are they qualified to
Yes,
take
they're
on a
on the-
para role or?
Yes, they're in the same pay grade as paraprofessionals, and when we onboarded them at the beginning, Ms. Elizondo made sure that they all had TOPS training. So with that TOPS training, they're able to go and fill paraprofessional positions within the district.
Okay, well, that makes better sense then, because
Yes.
it just seemed like, okay, you're moving a parent from this to an actual position at the school now. So, yeah, okay, I get it.
So via attrition, overall since July of last year, we have cut 45 positions. 10 of those were federally funded. 35 of those were funded by the general fund. Now, 6 of those positions, when we were finishing up the budget from last year and when we ended up doing the raise in October, we knew those positions were going to be eliminated. So when we did the budget amendment for payroll, we already took out those salaries out of the budget. So they are not budget in the 23-24 budget, but the others are. And so those will be savings for the 24-25 school year.
So the number of positions that you're eliminated includes everybody. It could be teachers, could be paras, could be directors, could be anybody.
Yes.
It's
Throughout
not-
the whole district,
Yes,
right?
across the districts, okay, so.
It does not include auxiliary staff, just to make sure. It does not include maintenance staff. This is
Yeah,
just.
this does include maintenance and transportation.
And are these positions that have been eliminated, has this been that some of the people that have resigned on their own or what, you went and saw if we actually needed or not, so they were,
We had meetings. We had a
so
resignation.
that's how many resignations and, because we haven't told anybody you're leaving because we don't need this position, so this is how many
We
people
have not
have.
told anyone, you lost a job, you're
So
no
we've
longer
lost
employed."
45 employees.
Yes. Well,
Through retirement or
Well,
resignation?
Resignation. I mean, that's what it
Yes.
ends up to,
And there's
right?
been like kind of like a domino effect. This person retired or resigned, and so we said, do we need it? Well, yes, we do, but then
No, I understand.
this person over here this person can transfer over here, and this position we decided we don't need. So sometimes it does create okay, who really replaced, or where did this position go?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a effect that can affect 2 or 3 other positions.
I get it, we can grab somebody from some other, and fill that position without having to, and still eliminate that position, I get it. But, is that all for this school year? Is that it, or are they still able to come in and resign or retire, or?
so as far as this year, the penalty-free deadline ended on June 12th. So at this point, anyone who's on contract who would like to leave and not come back to this year has to give us a letter of resignation. And at this point in time, Mr. Van Matry has to give them the permission and release them from their contract.
The 45, what percentage does that reduction from our total employees?
We were probably at
Represents-
430, 440.
10% basically?
Actually, no, I mean 525, 535, we were in that area. 533.
7%.
Do you track attrition rates over the years? I know you've just been here a short time in HR, but do we watch our attrition as to where it's
I
going?
haven't found any of that as far as charts or anything like that from previous years.
Okay.
And the 10 that are federally funded, is that because grant funding is no longer available, or?
No, we just, well, it's
some
pretty
of it was-
tight, some of it were pretty tight, but some of it was ESSER. We had 5 positions that were being paid out of ESSER that went away. We were able to absorb them, but part of the parent liaison switch is helping us be able to absorb those positions back into title or other ESSA, other funds, federal funds that we already have. So part of that is the ESSER going away and the positions we had funded out of there.
So we'll see all of these positions reflected in the budget except for the bottom 6.
And the 10 that are federally funded.
Okay.
So a total of 29.
And there's nothing to say that over the next few weeks, if we can eliminate any more positions in this process, there might be a few more.
I haven't looked it up, but has there been any admin positions eliminated?
Yes, the
CT's
principal at ACC will be filled from within.
Well, maybe I should have said, how about directors?
CTE.
CTE,
CTE?
Career and Technology,
No, yeah, I know what, but,
We didn't replace.
didn't
that
replace
position.
Mahogany.
oh, okay.
HR coordinator,
What?
our HR coordinator.
Assistant at special ed.
Correct.
So next I'd like to talk about class size. So we've done an evaluation of student information. I can tell you, we've been having staffing meetings since January with every campus. We have been looking at projected student enrollment by grade level for next year. We've been looking at our demographics. We're looking at our special education students, our bilingual students, our dyslexia students, our GT students, and how we're gonna level classes. And then we've been focusing on our academic programs, making sure that we stay committed to our dual language program, to our Warpath Academy. And so we're looking at all of that, and we have decided that going forward, we are going to staff based off of student enrollment and not historical enrollment. So what does that mean? So that means if we've, in the past, had 20 first grade teachers and one of the 20 first grade teacher retired, we would hire another first grade teacher so that we'd have the 20. Instead of looking at how many FTEs we have, we're gonna look at students and class sizes, and we should determine the ratio of how many teachers we actually need for the grade level. And that's how we'll staff going forward. And so in doing this, we're still very cognizant that our students have needs, making sure that we meet their needs, but that at the same time, that we're looking at our budget and we're being as efficient as possible. So when we look at class sizes, one of the first things we looked at are the TASB staffing recommendations for teachers. So for our grade levels, kindergarten through 4th grade, they recommend 22-1. For 5th grade, they recommend 25-1. For grades 6 through 8, they recommend anywhere between 22-1 and 24-1. And for high school, our 9th to 12th grade, it's anywhere between 22 and 25-1. So starting next year, all our elementary class sizes will be at 22-1 or less. But that is the goal. Of course, when you do the division and when people come over and if we have transfers, we can't just get it right on the dot. So there'll still be some classes that have some wiggle room, but we're really trying to get to that 22-1.
So
We're closed for transfers at intermediate.
Oh,
What was the norm of last year? How many kids?
So when you look at primary as a whole, it was 19-1. But when you look at kindergarten, it was as low at times during the year as 16-1. So there was room for some more efficiency there. At intermediate, we were already looking at 20, about there. So it will be an increase. Probably they're going to see it more at the primary than they are at the intermediate because those were more staffed more adequately than we were at the primary.
let me ask, Gabe, so when you do your master schedule and you put in your class size for each teacher, is it locked at a certain time like that? Now, I know the first couple of weeks is going to be chaotic, but is the master schedule locked to say this particular teacher has 23 students and you're not adding any more? Or
It gives you a warning
You get a
if you're going
warning.
to exceed that. And so for our tested courses, we're trying to keep those at 22-1. For those that are not tested, we're at 25-1. But as you know, there's some CTE courses that can't go 22-1. Welding, for instance, that's too many kids with too much dangerous stuff. So that teacher ratio is going to be the smaller, as well as phlebotomy and EKG, because they're pricking arms and things of that nature. Those class sizes will be smaller. But for general academics, if they're tested, we're trying to keep 22-1. If they're not tested, we're going up to 25-1. And in some of the electives, 30-1, depending on how we, how
So
that
the
shapes out.
electives are not locked. Those you can put 30 kids in an elective class.
Like, for instance, for football, there's 75
Well,
of them, yeah. But for Spanish, they're hitting 30 to 1, sometimes even higher. But that's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
So that accelerated summer school is dropping that number, taking Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. And so that will help, we'll probably get to about 28 to 1.
Are we anticipating, I know that you can't project or anticipate at the beginning of the school year how many students are going to be coming in and how many are going to be leaving. But are we anticipating that there will be more students coming in? And so you're going to have to unlock that capacity to fulfill the need for that particular class? Do you have wiggle room in there to do that? Because I know that
Yes.
could possibly happen.
Yeah, we have some room, and if it says it's subjects, we have to go over 22 to 1. That's fine, because there's some kids, as you know, as CCISD starts,
Yeah.
we'll lose kids
Yes.
and gain kids, but it usually kind of nets to be the same. If we lose, we get, I will tell you, I signed 3 transfer paperworks today. Kids are moving into the district. They want to take advantage of Warpath. Our athletic programs are doing very well. So, each kid equals more money.
I had 11 that I signed today, total for a district. High school, the enrollment trajectory is going the right way, so is middle school. Where we're hemorrhaging students is primary.
And in the intermediate,
Yes, sir.
fifth grade?
We're pretty steady. And so we're
We're
trying
not
to.
doing 25 to 1 in fifth grade.
That's what I'm gonna ask.
That's the TASB recommendation, but we're not doing that.
Oh, okay, well,
We're at
We're gonna
22.
be at 22.
22, okay.
So we'll try to, TM's always been, we're an education school. We've always been known that since the doors opened. So I would like to know that y'all are trying to do your best to stay consistently at the lower end of the TASB, what they recommend, so that our kids continue to get, not that it's going to change if you put more kids in there, but it is going to stress the classroom, right? With
No
everybody
question.
that's in there, including the teachers, so.
There's a research shows that a lower student-teacher ratio benefits academic performance.
And there's nowhere else we can hit the budgets versus doing this type of,
The 3 big factors that impact the budget are enrollment, ADA, and tax collection, particularly with moving forward with tax collection. And we projected 151 student increase in the district, and we hit 39, okay? But it was the first time in a long time that we ended the year with more kids than the previous year. A long time. The other thing is attendance. We projected a 4% increase in attendance, and we came in at, not counting the waiver, 1.53. Now, I went back to the 2010, 2011 school year, and we've never had a 1.5 increase in attendance. This was the first time. So what gives me optimism is the 2 of the big 3 factors that are going to impact whether we can ever go down to 18 to 1 are moving, but they're not moving like we want them to move. That's why, in answer to Denise's question earlier, with this budget, we're going to be very conservative, and we're going to build the budget based on 23, 24 numbers. Now, what that will do is that will increase the deficit, but it will be a very conservative projection because we know we're going to increase attendance and we're going to increase enrollment because we've hit the trough and now it's going the other way. If we can find a way to get pre-KK 1 and 2 numbers even flat, then that trajectory will go even higher. But there's a bubble that's hurting us as far as enrollment at the lower grades.
I mean, we've always, the attendance for the district has always been at what, 93, 94, maybe even higher. Do we know why we're having a decline and at what grade levels we're having a decline? I mean, I know you mentioned the elementary and that kind of thing. Our kids,
As far as enrollment or attendance?
enrollment, so, well, it affects attendance.
I'm hearing there's a bubble,
There's a bubble.
but I don't know for a fact that the houses that surround primary and intermediate, those kids are growing up now. But I don't know, I'm not a demographer. I know that there's 250 homes that are going in on the other side of Rand Morgan. Our attendance our enrollment's going to rise. There's no question, particularly at the secondary campuses. And in intermediate, we're not taking any transfers now. We're at the max there, but we do have plenty of room at primary, particularly in kindergarten.
Crazy, right? Because we didn't think that a year ago.
Yeah, I would not have predicted, Ben, that last year we would have 75 to 80 less kids in that campus than what we had.
It's just the cost of living.
Yeah. My concern with the 22-1, of course, the first concern is the kids. Will they get the attention they need? My second concern is, we are an education district, and I get that. That's why I moved here in 2006, was because of the education, nothing else. But what I'm saying is, are we going to stress out our teachers to the point that when we do need more teachers, they're going to say, nah, we're not going to go to TN because they got a 23-1 ratio, and the teachers are stressed out by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's my concern. Of course, the kids are my number one concern, but my secondary concern is that we're going to stress the teachers out. Do y'all have a plan? And I like when Paul Arriaga starts talking about the way they operate, because there's always a plan for the unexpected. Is there a plan for when our teachers get stressed? And,
I know a lot of teachers from around districts.
Yeah, so do I, yeah.
And their classrooms are really full like this.
Well, just last year, you yourself were saying that you didn't want to see classrooms 22 to 23, and here we are. So, that's a concern of mine. I just want to see.
I think that's good. That's a good point Ben brings, and that's something we can look into, right? Information is key.
Yeah,
If we can show our teachers, yes, we're increasing your class size, but here's how it is statewide, here's how it is district-wide, so that we need to give them some feedback so they don't just think we're raising their classrooms, show them that it's relatable to, if you went to look somewhere else for a job, your class is gonna be this big, right? I think that's a good point that Ben brings, is the more we can communicate and share information that says, we're not just bringing you in next year and telling you you're going from 18 to 25. They're gonna be like, what the heck, I would be like that too. But if I say, this is why, but this is how you compare to our neighbors, to a district our size in San Antonio, whatever you can do, I don't know how y'all get your information. That gives them some, gives them maybe a little bit of
so that they
peace of mind to say, okay, well, they're not just pulling one on me.
They can go down the road to CCISD and run into the same issues,
Right.
not just here at TM. Another thing is, because we are in a deficit and we are trying to save money, I don't want our employees to think that they're being punished for some of the mistakes the board have made on spending some of this money, and I take some of the blame for it. But I don't want our employees or our teachers or staff or clerical, anybody to say, you know what, I'm having to pay the price for us being in a deficit. And I want them to see that there's an outlook for it. We are doing this because we have to, but like Mr. Van Matre said, there's a lot of houses coming up. Our enrollment should increase. That should give us a little bit more money to fill some of these spots that might have to, can bring it down to 21, I don't know how that works, I really don't. But as long as they can see, I'm just really concerned that the teachers are gonna say, we're taking the hit for the deficit. And I don't want anybody to feel like that.
I think we've done a pretty good job of going out on the campuses in the spring and communicating the fact that we do have to do more with less. And there is a direct relationship regarding what happens in Austin and what happens at TM. And the fact of the matter is, there's been no increase in funding since 2019.
Do we relay that communication to our
Yes,
teachers? Do we
all
have
the
like,
time.
weekly newsletters that say, this is what's going on? Because that would be good, like, these are the things we're dealing with, because we assume they know, right? I know a little bit, I don't know a lot. But the more, again, when you get to tough times like this, the more information we can share on why we're making decisions gives people a peace of mind. First of all, you got to share that nobody's lost their job. That's tremendous. And I think we keep saying that in here, we're kind of just glossing over it, but that's a tremendous feat y'all have done. You've managed the business, you're doing things that are really good. That should be shared, right? Like we're doing everything, we're here for you, us included, school board here. We're trying to make the best decisions, right? And I just think, back to where I was before, if we can get some kind of information, communication, sharing, it might help the morale and help the vision that you guys have built. Because you guys got a great vision, and you're really doing great things with our hands being tied by the state and attendance and things that are really, maybe not so much in our control.
The other thing where I do think we need to improve messaging is the difference between bond money and general fund.
The community does not
It's very
understand.
confusing. It's very confusing.
And I think we can do a much better job with messaging.
Well,
I
and
get
also
hammered.
with,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, also with ADA. I talk to parents all the time and I'm like, you do know that if you let someone stay at home, let your child stay at home, we have trouble paying our teachers. And they'll look at you like, what do you mean? And I said, well, we don't get paid for that day that your child doesn't sit in the classroom. So people are not educated on that either. They think their kid not coming to school is not a big deal. And it hurts the child and the school.
Those are really good points. Next, we wanted to talk about the restructure of ACC. So at the end of the school year of 2023, there were 15 positions at ACC. So that included the principal, the assistant principal, the counselor, 2 clerical staff, 2 paraprofessionals, and 8 teachers. We did receive 4 resignations, and then I think we had 2 other employees leave during the year. So when we start school year 2025, we project to have, we're gonna have 10.5 FTEs at the campus. We'll have a principal, we'll have a counselor. This is
0.5 counselor.
a 0.5 counselor, and this will be somebody internal who will come provide counseling support to our students.
Wait a second, what do you mean somebody internal? From
One of our
within the campus?
counselors within
The district,
a
not.
counselor in the district will provide support services in that capacity. We'll have 1 clerical staff, 2 paraprofessionals, and 6 teachers. So that'll be a reduction of the 10.5 total positions, but that campus will again have 1 full-time CSI person there to help support on a daily basis. As a result of this restructure, there are 2 other positions at high school that will become vacant, that will be lost through the reorganization. So we have a electives teacher who left ACC. So we have identified a teacher who will leave high school and will go to ACC. And then we have identified an administrator who can also serve as the principal for the campus. So those 2 positions will be merged and we will cut 1 position.
I have a question for ACC. Is this a full-day campus?
Yes.
It is a full-day campus. The kids are there all day long, from
10
9 o'clock in the morning.
10 to 2. Actually, next year it'll be 10 to 3. Staff is there all day.
The students will be there from 10 to 3.
Yes, sir. This year they were there from 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
With the restructure, we'll have alignment with our dual credit program. Currently, ACC partners with Del Mar to provide continuing education, which is different than dual credit. Going forward, our students will align with high school and align with high school and the Warpath Academy. And they'll be able to have opportunities with Coastal Bend College and with Texas A&M Kingsville. Currently, whenever they transition from high school to ACC, they're no longer able to take advantage of those opportunities. And they have to change their pathways. So now if a student transfers from high school to ACC, they won't have to change their pathway and they can continue with the choices that that their elections of whatever it is that they'd like to study.
So we're not gonna be doing anything with Del Mar for ACC?
No.
And part of that also helps is because Del Mar does have higher tuition than our partnerships with Coastal Bend College and Texas A&M Kingsville.
So I have
Not
another,
for dual credit, though.
It's for continuing education.
yeah. So I have another question. If we're technically, nothing changes when the student leaves the high school to ACC now. That's correct? Nothing changes?
Yes, some things do change. Their entire PEIMS
The
pathway changes, so they're no longer a high school student. They become an ACC student under a different state ID.
So how can they take advantage of our Warpath Academy if they're not a high
So
school
in
student?
our MOU with Coastal Bend College and with TAMUK, we write them in as an add-on that they'll service both of our campuses. Both of those colleges are fine with doing that. So to give you a little tidbit of what happens, our instructors for welding, let's say, we do not do dual credit welding. We do continuing education welding. So we pay a reduced fee for continuing education. What Coastal Bend College allows us to do then is we pay a $25 fee, and they take those hours that they have for continuing education and flip it into dual credit. So that way it's transferable wherever they might go. Del Mar College does not do that. It stays on the continuing ed side. They're not able to go anywhere else. They have to finish at Del Mar, which they might choose to do anyway. But if they were going after their associate's degree in welding, well, they got continuing ed hours, not dual credit hours. So that's a major problem.
They gotta start over if they don't
They
go to
do.
Del Mar.
But let me ask you, Mr. Ametri, I mean, hypothetical, right? A lot of these kids work. That's what we've been told since 4 years I've been on board. A lot of these kids work. Well, some of them, let's say they work in town, and it would be easier for them to attend Del Mar. Would we still be able to help them?
They wouldn't attend us. They would just travel to the high school. They're still eligible to take every class with us where they wouldn't be. So, for instance, we have Augustine Martinez, who's our teacher of record. He can only be the teacher of record at high school. We can't make him the teacher of record at both high school and ACC. They're two different campuses at that point. Having them come over, he's not taking a high school course. He's taking a Coastal Bend college course. It's a different way of coding.
He's taking that college course at the high school. That's just where it's located, but technically he's taking it with CBC,
Not with,
not with TMHS.
so they are going to be our students at high school. The only thing they'll go over there for would be just the academics.
So then I go back to my question I said 4 years ago, why don't we just move ACC? We have plenty of room at the high school. Why don't we just move it back?
Well, we may, what I want to do is finish out the lease at the shopping center for the DAP kids, renovate the ACC campus, look at how successful those kids are at the 24-25 school year, and make some decisions in the best interest of the kids and what we can afford.
Sorry.
So the restructure will also include the elimination of duplicate programs and equipment. So we want to be more efficient, so, I'm sorry. ACC currently purchases Bright Thinker. It is something that our secondary, thank you, sir, campuses, except for our secondary campuses, middle school and high school, we use Apex for things like credit recovery and course acceleration. ACC currently uses something called Bright Thinker. We are now going to align ACC with the high school and middle school. They will use Apex going forward, and that should save the district about $10,000. In addition, ACC has its own scheduling and gradebook program that they hire that they get from a third-party vendor. We will stop using that third party for the upcoming school year, and we will move them and transition them to our student information system. In addition, the technology at ACC is Apple products. They have Apple technology. Everyone else in the district uses Windows products. So we will start transitioning ACC to Windows products as equipment needs to be purchased. We will start putting in those window products so that the entire district is aligned. And we do anticipate through that move, we will experience some cost savings, and it'll probably help the technology department, because I know we've had to send them to San Antonio on several instances, because when they have to go drop off things that need to be repaired, they have to go drop them off at the Apple store, I believe, in San Antonio. So that'll create some efficiencies. We wanted to talk about transfers. We have, of course, the more students that we bring in, they increase our ADA, and that helps the budget. It helps to reduce root capture. On March 18th, we posted on Facebook. We started our Facebook campaign, actually, I think a week before March 18th. We posted applications on our website so that we could start taking new applications. It was a really good system, very different from the previous system where I think there was a certain day in the summer and you found out a week before school started whether or not the student was going to be approved for a transfer. Here we went ahead and put the applications on the website. We immediately started taking them, and then we gave pre-approvals where we could. We did a good social media campaign, and we've been advertising on electronic billboards throughout the city. This information was as of last week. It does not include the 11 transfers that Mr. Van Matry signed today, but we did have 54 applications as of last week. 44 were approved, 7 were denied, and 3 are pending. But due to our student enrollment, we are no longer accepting transfers at the intermediate. Then we wanted to touch on attendance and truancy. I know we had Dr. White and his team did a presentation, I think not last month or the month before. We do have district support resources. Miss Iris Chapa is our truancy liaison. She's always in coordination with ESC2, attending roundtable meetings. We offer several wraparound services, communities and schools. We have our social workers to make contact with our parents, to help them with whatever resources or get them in connection with whatever resources they may need so that they can send their kids to school. And then we've had a lot of campus-based initiatives. The one that pops out to me the most are the ones at middle school, because it's like on social media, the kids were getting AirPods and TVs and really cool things. And I know that was bringing some excitement to the campuses. I know my son told me, he didn't want to miss 6 weeks because I forgot what was up for grabs and he really wanted it. So it works. Those are measures that we're trying to take advantage of in order to encourage our students to come to school, inform our parents, get everyone here. And so I am going to turn it over to Mr. Carroll so he can talk to you about budget assumptions.
Like you said, we're going to use our 23-24 numbers to budget for the next year. But we're increasing Warpath Academy. Our CTE numbers are going up. We're doing dual language, all those things. It's going to bring in more money. Well, on the bottom line, it actually isn't going to bring in more money. Yes, it'll be more CTE dollars, it'll be more bilingual dollars, but that means we get less regular dollars, we get less, the other things that are going down, we'll get less money for that. The bottom line doesn't change. So that's where it was like, we could add all these CTE programs, but it's not going to pay for the teachers that we need. to fund those, to teach those programs that are gonna bring more kids in, but that's just it's not gonna give us more money at the end.
That was so hard for me to understand. And I could not understand how we could have so many more kids in CTE programs and not generate additional allotment for CTE, because I didn't live in the transition allotment grant world, and now I kind of get it. And now that it's gone, it's changed, and we're worried, is it gonna, based on tax collections, is it really gonna hurt us, which I think it might, or is it really gonna help us, which I think it might? Let me just say one more thing with transition. So, we were meeting today with a really knowledgeable school finance attorney that works for Mo Casey. And in examining our, what we call the template, where we put in data and it spits out, to use an example he used, based on everything about TM, it's about $29 million to educate the kids, and they expect TM to put in 26 million of that through tax collections, and they'll put in the rest. If we collect 24 million instead of 26, there's a $2 million gap there that they're not going to make up. That really worries me.
Right, and I'm gonna skip a bullet down. Let's just talk about Flint Hills. For 4 years, they protested their values. For 1 year, I think it went back to 18 or 19. 1 year they paid in full. The next 3 years, they only paid about 70% of what their appraised value was, and they were protesting it. That got resolved in 22-23. We got that huge payment. They didn't make us pay any more money back for the year they paid in full. They agreed to 90% for those 3 years. That's why we got that big chunk of money at the end of that 1 year. And then for the next year, the year the school year that just ended, but the fiscal year we're still in right now, they once again protested their values. They did come to an agreement in April, and so there was a huge adjustment to the values this year. So they got their values reduced about $500 million this year. They short paid, and to settle up to what they did agree to, they wound up paying us about another $1 million to get to what their new agreed thing was. But what that means is, this last year, even with the deficit budget, knowing that we are still in formula transition, and whatever Flint Hills doesn't pay is going to make up the difference. You're going to see that flip flop. I was still anticipating 98% collection, so I thought we were going to get about $30 million in tax revenue. We're only going to get about 26, but we're going to get $4 million more in state revenue to make up for it. But that's under formula transition. I think it's good news that, talking to the appraisal district, this isn't like a secret. They've already, Flint Hills always says they want to be treated the same way as Valero. The appraisal district has negotiated Valero's protest and reached a decision with them. So now they're negotiating with Flint Hills. So the good news for me, I think, is that I'm getting an indication that they will resolve the issue now before certified values come out in July. So there won't be because if this situation had happened last year, what happened with their values last year, if we were not under the formula transition grant, we would be out $4 million because they would have only paid $4 million less than what I had budgeted, and the state wouldn't have made up the difference. So now I want Flint Hills to be resolved before when the certified values come out, because I want to know that what Flint Hills, our biggest taxpayer, is being assessed, that they're going to pay 100% of that bill. Then we can better plan about what's going to happen. Now, and then I'm asking everybody that I can to say, before formula transition, I always use 98% collection as my base, because, you know, we've got hundreds of taxpayers, we've got hundreds of businesses, we've got hundreds of other things. Not everybody pays their taxes. There's always, we usually don't get 100%, but it's real critical now. We're only gonna get, if I budget 98% and we don't get 98%, we're gonna be short in the bottom line. So I'm trying to decide if 98% is the percentage, you know, that we wanna go with for next year. Because it worked in the past, before formula transition, when we did live and die by tax collections, it never caused a major problem, so hopefully that'll be the case. But I'm very optimistic that we will know, Flint Hills will agree, and the appraisal district will agree, and whatever, when we get our certified values, we'll know at least where we stand on what we can tax. Now, our tax rate's not negotiable. The state's already determined what the floor can be for your compressed tax rate. It's like 61.6169, I think, is what the floor is now. We're not projected to be quite at the floor, but just knowing that when we get our certified values, if I know Flint Hills is going to pay 100% of theirs, I can be pretty sure that we're going to get the revenues, that we're not going to have a shortfall from taxes. And then one thing,
Denise, you had a question?
Yes.
What year was pre-formula?
2019 and below.
Well, no, let's see. Let's see, this is
2019.
This is you mean before the transition formula? We're in the middle of this biennium. It was the biennium and the biennium, so we'd have to go back. We just finished 24, so that was 22 and 23, 21 and 22, 20 and 21, so I guess it'd be 19. 19 was the last year that we weren't.
That was HB 3.
Yeah, House Bill 3 in that legislative session.
The basic allotment went up about $1,500, and then there was this significant amount of money for teachers, and 75% of that money had to be, there was a formula there, and then that was also the creation of teacher incentive allotment.
But they did create House Bill 3, though. There were about 100 districts in the state, including us, that House Bill 3 actually harmed us. It prevented us. So whatever we got that last year, 1918, whatever we got per student, an ADA, that 10,000, that's what locked in that number. If we had been a higher number 5 years ago, we have been getting that higher number all along. And that's the thing about state funding. They try to equalize it, but there's really no way they can really equalize it for everyone. Because I'm sure there were other states that got the formula transition that were at a higher number. They were getting $12,000 per ADA, and they got to keep that. They were guaranteed keeping that $12,000. And what's the difference? That's another district that could be right down the road, but they get $12,000 per kid, and we only get $10,299.
The other variable is, why does the legislature think that we don't need that in 2024? What's changed, other than stuff's more expensive?
Exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
one thing that
I agree, Leo.
one thing that did catch me a little bit by surprise is CC Polymers and our 313 agreement. I knew the agreement was for 15 years. I knew the agreement started in 2013. I haven't been here 15 years, so I know the agreement had 3 more years. What I didn't remember, once I got my preliminary values and they weren't giving me an INS number and an M&O number, is the agreement is still in effect for 3 more years. We're still going to get the $100 per ADA for 3 more years, but their tax limitation ended last year. So for this tax year 24, for the 24-25 year, they are paying full value, full M&O value, and they're being fully taxed on both sides, M&O and INS. Before, they were only paying taxes on $30 million on the M&O side, 100% on the INS side. So next year, this tax, when they get their statement this October, they're going to be fully taxed. So automatically $500 million is coming back onto the tax roll for M&O.
Will they pay it?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they're.
I mean,
a good
they just
question.
laid off a
I'm
ton of
told they
people.
are.
We are getting the message that, yes, they've halted things, they've laid off people, they're in a holding mode here, but they're still, I think they're still able to pay their bills. So they're still financially viable, is what I'm hearing. They haven't declared bankruptcy, they haven't said anything. So, but they're gonna be, their tax break has ended. So, 500 million is going back on the books. But what I anticipate is when Flint Hills gets through negotiating, I'm thinking they're gonna probably strike the same deal they did this last year. And so I anticipate that the 500 million that's getting added with CC Polymers, Flint Hills is probably gonna get their values lowered that much, but hopefully we'll have that good number in July.
Have you calculated what are, I guess, the dollar amount now that CTE can increase above the basic allotment? How much that is for us?
I have not done that exactly to see what the effect has been, because we're still working on current year data and how we think it's gonna change for next year.
Or even on the current year data, just taking all of last year's numbers.
That's a power school issue. That's a power school issue that we are, Dr. White, hopefully we have a ticket to resolve. There's 4 areas of potential revenue that we will resolve this week. That's one of them, CCMR outcome bonuses. The optional flexible year attendance, where the numbers that we're seeing doesn't count those kids that we can receive for ADA. We're not seeing any bilingual that we know with our DLI program, and we're not seeing the CTE increases. So those 4 areas, once they're cleared up, they will produce revenue. We just don't have an idea what it will be as of now. But Dr. White, what's your confidence that will be?
It's pretty high, especially with the CTE piece, knowing just how much we've increased in our offerings. For instance, in last year, we're plus 15 in the course offerings from the year before. So just knowing that each student that takes and participates in CTE generates additional weight, ADA. And on top of that, those students who are participating fully or 50% or 100% of their time in CTE, they generate even more funding. So what Mr. Van Mater was saying was that as we generate our numbers through an ODS on data suite system that helps kind of project and do calculations, there's a utility that's currently broken because as we were adding the module for OFSDP, there's some additional background work that needs to be done on PowerSchool's end to support what we're doing. And so that's the ticket Mr. Van Mater is referring to. That's gone in today. That ticket has allowed us to increase or escalate our priority to the second level, meaning that we're going to be up next to get service. So we're hoping to hear back tomorrow with everything fixed by the end of this week so that we can have those projections ready to go as early as next week.
I will say this, even with that and the reduction of personnel, it's not going to make up a $2.7 million deficit. We are still going to have a significant deficit for 24-25. My goal is to cut it in half. But I don't know, because we've got to, we over-projected attendance and we over-projected enrollment. And we've got this issues with tax collection. But we'll have a much better picture. It won't be complete, but we'll be able to ballpark some of those questions, Denise, next Monday.
But we have the pressure on PowerSchool because our submission, our summer submission is in 3 weeks. This is where we send all our, this is the most important submission. This is when we send all our ADA data that's going to finalize what our funding is going to be for this past year. So the first submission is due in a couple of weeks. We do have a second submission opportunity to, if we get better information or if we see something or if we need to pick something before the second one, that's in August. But this is the most important submission because this submission is what drives most of our funding. So we need to make sure our ADA is maximized and we're reporting every dollar, everything that we can to the state to maximize our dollars. So once we get those numbers, and like I said, for this year that's just ending, those dollars are not gonna, those increases are not gonna give us more money at the bottom line. They're not gonna help offset the deficit for 23, 24, because the only number that's gonna change is those optional flexible kids. We don't have those ADA in that top number yet. So this number up here is hopefully gonna go up some more, so that will help the bottom line. The program ones won't actually help the bottom line for this last year, but they will give us the framework to say, okay, we know what happened this year, so we can plug in the numbers to see what the effect's gonna be for next year, where the extra CTE and the extra bilingual and all the extra stuff will actually give us more money at the bottom. It's gonna increase that number at the top, but it's also gonna increase program income as well, so the bottom number will grow more. It won't just be that top number. More CTE contact hours means more money, more cash in the bank. We won't be locked in at that 10,266. We'll be able to actually, our ADA per student funding at the end will be more than that. It'll be more than that 10,299, which is what we want if we get all our tax collections. And because the goal of the state is, you know, to be in the best position, you want your appraised values, because the state comes in and audits the appraisal district. Because the state wants to make sure that the appraisal districts could lowball everything, and then the state would have to make up the difference. So that's why the state comes in and says, they do their own assessment, and they say, so you want your appraisal district values to be pretty close to what the state says, so that way we're satisfied the state in saying, we're taxing at the max, we're taxing at what we should be, so that we're kicking in our share, but then we gotta collect those taxes. And if we do that, the state will give us the rest. If you got a disconnect, if the state comes in and says the appraisal district's lowballing, that causes problems, that hurts the school district, even though we don't control the appraisal district. And then if now that formula transition's gone, tax collections could hurt us too. The state's not gonna make up the difference if we don't. So if I budget at 98% and we don't get 98%, we know we're gonna have a shortfall.
Let me ask you, I know the value, the CCMR is not, when is that gonna take, is that this year that they're paying less or is that coming in for next year? Because it's not the same value that we were getting from CCMR.
Well, a lot of, you're getting, the CCMR is really out of my realm. How we get the CCMR money?
Yeah.
It's like a 2-year process.
It's a 2-year process.
And you know, we've also got some issues because we had incorrect data submitted 2 years ago. We might be losing out on some stuff now because of what we failed to report 2 years ago, or what we were doing 2 years ago was not maximizing what we could have been getting. But I guess I haven't heard what's going to be less on. Is there anything that's going to be less on CCMR?
The less was this year. Like Mr. Van Major said, we hit the trough, now we're going to bounce back up. So we're going to see the money start coming in. It's going to be slowly. I think we're going from like 0 to around 66, and then that will be doubled, if not 2.5 times more the following year. So we'll start upticking again now that we've bottomed out, for lack of a better word.
But from what I'm understanding is from Dr. White, because this is a little outside my area, but all these third parties are reporting the data to TA. Like, if we have a TM graduate that's going to a university, somehow TA is going to get that data, or the state's going to get that data, and then, so I guess we're basically proving that we prepared a kid that was successful in college, so we're gonna get some money for that.
Right.
And I've understood, I mean, one of the consultants said, you know, even the Department of Defense is not giving TEA the information of our graduates that are going into the military. So we're not getting that money yet because they're dependent on the Department, they're waiting to get the information directly from the Department of Defense. So just because we know we've got kids going into the military, we're not gonna see that money until TA gets that information from the Department of Defense. And until wherever they collect their information from SAT, ACT, TSI testing, That's what determines when we're gonna get that money, and it's a whole 2 years later. So, that's another thing, looking at, I really, we're not gonna live and die by that money. I would prefer to pretend that we're not gonna get it, and when we do get it, that's when we'll, once we get it, then we can see what we wanna do with it, but it's really difficult to bank on it, because we just don't know. There's so much data on that. We just don't know exactly how much we're gonna get.
Mr. Ametry, that deficit that your goals at 1.3, 1.4 million, does that include the 400,000 to 600,000 shortfall in the ADA?
Yes,
That would be included in there?
yes. Because where that's going to be included, show up, is the 23-24 audit, where the significant savings that we've made with personnel is going to be offset by loss of revenue for 23-24.
And then, like I said, I don't think we're gonna be at what I call the floor, which is the lowest tier 1 tax rate. Our M&O tax rate might go up a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see till I get the certified values. Because like I said, CC Polymers is gonna add 500 million. I'm anticipating Flint Hills is gonna reduce it back down when they reach their settlement. So our total values might actually drop a little bit because of that net change. So we won't be forced to go to the floor. So the M&O tax rate might go up just a tiny, tiny bit. But once again, there's a lot of asterisks that we hopefully will have some better information next Monday.
With the savings that's below 10 million, if we continue down 2.5 plus deficits, that's like 4 years of operations. At what point or year, is at the end of next year, do we start talking about, Vaders or loans?
That won't help us much either because of our tier 2 pennies. A Vader, what, 700,000?
Yeah, we've asked the consultants to give us a rough estimate of, because we're already at 8 golden pennies, and then we're at 13 point something, because we were at 17, because they compressed everybody down to $1. We were at $1.17, they compressed everybody down to $1. But since we had the TRE, we were at $1.17, but we were compressed on that to 13.83, I think, and so we have the 8 golden pennies. We only have a few more copper pennies. A Vader would only get us a few more copper pennies. And I've asked 2 consultants, and a Vader would only get us between $600,000 and $700,000. That's all it would. And I mean, that's a lot of money, but when we're talking about 2.7, we're talking about an election, and you got consultants, and you gotta pay for the,
You can't touch the 20% either till 2018.
Right, yeah, and we do lose a little bit because we give the additional 20% homestead exemption. That does prevent us from maximizing what the TRA did before. We're losing a little bit because, once again, the state looks at us like, hey, you're not taxing as much as you could be. You're giving your taxpayers a little bit more break than the rest of the state, so that's not gonna benefit you. That's actually gonna hurt you a little bit, as far as funding goes. But
I don't want to go out to the community and tell
ask
them we're
them,
going
take it
to ask
back.
them that
But
after
the
we
legislature-
After the bond.
we were just preaching that, hey, look what we do for y'all.
But the legislature has made sure, they want tax relief, they've made sure, we couldn't even go and ask to repeal that until, I think, 27 or 28. So we can't repeal the additional 20%.
What is our general fund looking like at the end of this year?
That's another thing that I'm hoping to have a number for you on Monday.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, though, we've got the SHARs hit this year. And that's another thing, too, for next year. it's still up in the air. SHARS funding's not going away, but that's going to be another area where it's like I'm going to make my best guess on what we'll think we're going to get next year. But between the SHARS adjustment and us not quite hitting our attendance and our enrollment, we'll see. But I'll have some information for you on Monday.
That's all we have.
This was good information. We need the state to hear us.
I know we're talking about, so originally we started at 2.7 negative, right? With the SHARS, which was about close to $500,000, and then the shortfall in ADA, so we're kind of looking at about 3.7, but then that's not deficit, that's not taking into consideration the savings. Can you translate the savings and personnel for this part of the year?
I'm going to. That's what I'm working on right now. Because I
Okay.
want to be able to tell you, we were at 2.7. What caused that number to go up, and what caused it maybe to come back down? That's what I'm hoping to project.
Any rough estimate that you can say? I mean, I know Mr. Van Maker said half of what we
That was for
anticipated.
next year.
Oh, you're talking about half for next year, okay, so it's 24, 25, okay. But not for this year, you can't give me.
I'm not going to say,
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be as great as I'd like it to be, but I'll have some more firmer numbers in the next few weeks. Because there will be savings, because some of these positions during the year, people left during the year, and we transferred people and eliminated that position. So some of those 29 positions that we eliminated that were in the budget, they weren't filled all year long. But some of them were. Some of them were filled all year long. People retired or resigned, and we were able to absorb those positions. So it's not a full 29 positions, full salaries of 29 positions.
Leo, I hope I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be over 2 million.
Okay. All right. And what about, now, when is a good time for us to go out and look at our insurance again? I know last year we didn't do.
Now's the time to do it.
Okay. Can we get somebody independent to come and help
Yeah,
us
we're
with
gonna have
that?
to put the shingle out there and say, hey, can anybody do anything better for us?
Yeah, I have requested, and I think Mr. Maker said, give me a copy of the last, just want to go.
Were you able to send it to me?
I've sent it to him twice and it's kicked it back. So
I don't know, if it might be too many attachments, I don't know, I was worried that maybe.
Well, man, I can pick up a hard copy tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, I can give you, it's gonna be
That's fine.
it's gonna be some.
Well, I really just need the,
You just need the first page that shows all the
Yes,
coverage. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I can get you that.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the cover letter too, because the cover letter from all the meetings shows you what the increases have been. Of course, remember, it also goes up because we're trying to get our values that they're insuring us, we're trying to get them closer to replacement value. We're nowhere near replacement value, but we're constantly increasing those to get them closer to replacement value.
If there's an opportunity to save money
Yeah, well,
with
Well, that's a
insurance,
big number.
Yes.
We pay a lot of money.
yes.
yeah, but my thing also is, Philip, and I know your plate's full and overflowing, but at some point, I, as a board member, would like to start seeing what the increase of insurance is gonna be once we get the CTE building up. Once we get the middle school up, I just wanna start forecasting, because those two, I mean, you're talking a lot of square footage.
Yeah.
And, are we gonna, I know, I can't remember, at one of the conferences, people were saying it was, you can't even get close to the replacement costs. But with new facilities, I mean, what are we gonna, as a board and as a superintendent, what are we gonna be looking at? Because, you build a brand new middle school and we've had tornadoes come through the town.
What we're hoping
happens
is we get 250, 300 new kids, and our enrollment goes up to 94, 95.
Yeah.
That's the answer right there.
Yeah.
And I'm optimistic. I'm buying TM stock.
Yeah. Any other questions?
We appreciate the information, y'all. Great job. The board will convene in closed meeting as authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act to discuss items allowed by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.071-.076, .082, .0821, .083, .084. It is 7:22 on Monday, June 10th, and the board will now be in closed meeting. All right, it is 7:44 PM. We have reconvened from closed meeting, and we do have some action that needs to be taken care of.
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees issue an educator probational contract for the 24-25 school year as presented.
All right, do I have a motion? A motion made by Ben. Do I have a second? Leo? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve a dual probationary contract with the certification addendum for the 24-25 school year as presented.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion made by Paul and a second by Janie. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Madam President, members of the board, it's the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve a dual probationary contract for the 24-25 school year as presented.
I'll make that motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion made by Kim and a second by Paul. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries 6-0.
Madam President, members of the board, it is the administration's recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the resignations for the 23-24 school year as presented.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
A motion made by Ben. Is there a second? Second by Leo. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Our next meeting is Monday, June 17th, 2024. That'll be a regular school board meeting. We also do have TASB at the end of this week, Wednesday through Thursday, for everybody that's attending that. So
Wednesday through Friday.
Wednesday through
Saturday.
Through Saturday.
What did I say?
Thursday.
Oh, sorry.
Are you
It is
on board now?
Wednesday through Saturday. All right. We know how this normally goes. We're gonna, yeah, so, who's gonna make the motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, yeah, Ben goes first.
Paul, Ben, and then second. And Paul, I better make sure I put A. So I have a motion made by Ben and a second by Paul to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. It is 7:47 and this meeting is adjourned.